Hello and welcome to another edition of Things Left Unsaid. I am very excited about this topic that we are going to discuss today. The title of this message is The Scars Remain. And for obvious reasons, I'm very excited to talk to you about it. So, whenever we think about scars, all of us generally think of it in a negative light. When someone says, I have scars, on my life, and we generally don't think of them as something that's attractive. If someone has scars on their face or scars, whatever, we think that, that it's something that's kind of like made it a little, less attractive. So we have this negative view on scars. So if somebody's talking about it in an emotional instance, they're like, I have scars on my heart. I have scars in my past. I have emotional scars and mental scars and things like that. And so we're using this negative connotation whenever we talk about scars. But as we know with Jesus, everything with Jesus is backwards. Everything that we have learned from being Americans or just being in this world, the world says, be the best, be the prettiest, be first, don't be second. Second is the first loser, all of these things. You come to Jesus and he has just a completely different outlook. So check this out. So, like the disciples are hanging out with Jesus, and I can't even imagine, this conversation. James and John, they're kind of like, we're pretty awesome, we're pretty cool. We think we got this thing figured out, and we want to go to Jesus and be like, when you get to heaven, who's going to sit on the right hand and the left? Can we, we're pretty great, right? We're pretty awesome. We've been casting out demons with you. We've been healing the sick with you. We've been, preaching the gospel with you. We've been just doing all this other thing. We're pretty much like the best humans that's ever lived. I can't imagine that there's another person that's better than us. I mean, when you get to heaven, Jesus, and whoever's sitting on your right and your left, surely it's good chance it's probably us too, right, Jesus? That's basically what they're saying. It's like, Jesus, whenever you get to heaven, who gets to sit, on both sides of you? Is it us? They're asking who's the greatest? Who can be the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? And when I see the disciples, some of the things that they said to Jesus, it gives me great hope because when I see how just ridiculous some of the things that they say and some of the ridiculous things that I've said or that I've done, I'm like, man, Jesus has a lot of patience because he came to them so lovingly, and he basically just said, all right, guys, you want to know how to be the greatest? You really want to know? You want to sit on the right hand, the left hand of me? It's like, all right, here you go. He said, come in real close, real close. He said, if you want to be the greatest in the kingdom of heaven, then you got to be the least. And I bet that they were just like, what? They were just like, excuse me, Jesus, that doesn't make any sense. We've been taught our whole life, to be the greatest, you got to accomplish all these things and be better than all. That's what the greatest means. It's a superlative. It means that, it's the tip top. It's the best. He's like, yeah, but that's not the way it works with me. He said, the way it works with me and the kingdom of God is if you want to be the greatest, you got to become the least. He's like, all right, look, let's just put this in perspective. I'm the greatest, right? You guys agree I'm the greatest. Yeah, Jesus, you're the greatest. You're the Son of God. You're the greatest. And he's like, okay, so I leave heaven, the greatest. I am the Son of God. I leave heaven. I don't announce myself with anthems or trumpets. I announce myself through angels to shepherds, the lowliest occupation, basically saying, I've come for everybody. I did not come with an army. I did not come to conquer. I literally came as humble as I possibly could in the form of a baby being born around farm animals in a stable, in a manger. And they're just like, yeah, that wasn't so great. He's like, for the Son of Man did not come to conquer or put enemies, under my feet. He's like, I came to love and I came to serve. He's like, let me show you guys how to do it. And he literally bends down and washes their feet. We're talking God, the greatest. He's like, you want to be the greatest? Follow my example. Love, serve. And so when we're talking about scars, that's the mindset that I want you to think about. I want to think about everything that you have thought you knew and you've learned, in the words of Yoda, unlearn what you have learned and throw it away. We're going to talk about scars as something beautiful, as something valuable, as something useful, as something that you never looked at it that way before, okay? Scars. So, first of all, let's start with a little story. I think we're coming to you from the bus this time. I think this phone is so funny. This phone is here just to call the driver for whatever we need. I was like, "Hello, driver, what you doing?" I think that's so funny. So we're here, little episode from the bus. I'm gonna tell you a story about President Garfield. I think his name was James, maybe. Or Arthur. Heck, I don't remember what his name is. I'll look it up here in a minute. But you can look it up and you can tell me what it is. But President Garfield was one of the few presidents that was assassinated. And the assassin's bullet actually missed all of his vital organs and did not kill him. He lived for a few months after that. So at this time, really sterilizing instruments and all that was not really, in practice yet. And not very many things about germs were widely known, suspected, not widely known, and definitely not prepared for, and all those kinds of things. And so they literally spend weeks and weeks and weeks and months prodding and poking this wound of President Garfield to try to get this bullet out. And so just continually prodding, continually poking, continually getting in there and trying to get this thing out. And after all of this, as we know and can suspect, all of this poking and prodding at the wound got infected, and the infection killed President Garfield. It actually wasn't the assassin's bullet that killed him. It was actually the poking and the prodding and the opening and the disturbing of the wound. The wound never properly had a chance to heal, and it ended up killing him. So when we think about scars, I want you to think about something. Jesus took scars. Jesus took scars in his hands. He took scars in his feet. He took scars on his head. He took scars on his back. Scars all over his body. Literally, when he comes back and is resurrected and is announcing himself to the disciples, he announces himself, and then they're like, is it really you? They can't believe it. And he's like, yeah, it's me. And he holds out his hands and he says, look, see, it's me. You see my scars? And it was his identifying, the way that he could identify himself and say, yes, it's me. You can look. These are my scars. Now, notice he didn't say wounds. Okay? He didn't say wounds, he said scars. So what's the difference between a wound and a scar? So a wound is something that hasn't healed yet. A wound is something that, is currently bleeding. A wound is like there's life leaving, the body, literally allowing life to leave and ebb out of our body. But a scar says there was a wound that was here, but that wound has been healed. See, this is why I get pumped up. We're talking about this. Talking about Jesus, and he says, look, it's me. These are the scars. What did Jesus do when he took those scars? In 2 Corinthians chapter 5, it says that he who knew no sin became sin for us. Jesus literally became sin. When we think about sin, we usually think about the fluffy, cute sins, that we've committed, and that Jesus died for those sins. But when you think about the worst of sins, he who knew no sin became sin. He became all of these things. He literally took them upon himself. That when you think, whenever you think of the cross, I guarantee you, you don't think of rape when you think of the cross. I guarantee you, when you think of Jesus on a cross, you don't consider child molestation. I guarantee you don't think that. I guarantee you, when you think of Jesus on the cross, you don't think of nations warring against nations and genocide. Don't think about it. Why would you? Because you're thinking of it, this great act of love that God did. You're thinking of this beautiful, thing that Jesus did for us. You're not thinking about that Jesus literally became a whore on the cross. I mean, the magnitude of what he did, the magnitude that Jesus, he came into the world and announced himself to shepherds, right? He said, I'm here for everybody. He goes to the cross and he says, I'm here for everybody. Rapists, child molesters, liars, adulterers, thieves, genocide, murderers. I'm here for everybody. And allows himself to be wounded. Allows himself to die. For the wounds to life to leave him through those wounds. Life literally left his body through those wounds. And then 3 days later, God resurrected him. And those wounds were no longer wounds. They were healed, and they were scars. The Bible says that he bore our sicknesses. He bore our diseases. He bore our iniquities. And by his stripes, by his scars, we are healed. See, scars for him, when somebody says, oh, I have scars on my life, I have scars on my heart, we're looking at this negative connotation. Jesus' scars were not a sign of something bad that had happened, but they were a sign that a battle had been fought, that victory had been won, that a war was fought, but that the war was won, that there was a wound there, but that wound has now healed. By his wounds, by his stripes, by his scars, we are healed. This gets me so excited, because when we follow his example, think about it, Hebrews chapter 12, it says that Jesus is the author and the perfecter, the finisher of our faith. It says, strip off every weight that slows us down and run the race that you have. How do we do this? By keeping our eyes on Jesus. So we follow him. So how do we do this? We're keeping our eyes on Jesus. Well, when he announced himself, he said, here it is, look at my scars. And what do his scars mean to us? Well, they mean a couple of things. If you go to Hebrews chapter 4, the very end of the chapter, his scars mean this number one thing here. In Hebrews chapter 4, verse 15, it says, this high priest of ours understands our weaknesses, for he faced all the same testings that we do, yet he did not sin. There's the first item of the scars. So he faced all of the temptings that we face. What have you faced? What have you had to endure in your life? What have you been tempted with in your life? Jesus faced all of the same testings. He faced all of the same opportunities that we face, except he conquered every single one of them. And so instead of looking down on us because we failed, it actually says the exact opposite, that he understands our weaknesses because he faced them. So he actually sympathizes. Another version says that he sympathizes and understands our weaknesses. And so when we go to him, it's like he has been through what we've been through. He knows what it's like. He knows exactly what it's like. We're not going to somebody who has no idea what it's like to live in this world. He knows exactly what it's like. So we go to someone who has the exact same scars that we have, and it says this. It says, because, he can understand, so let us go boldly before the throne of grace. So it's because this is true, because it's true that he understands our weaknesses, then we get to go before the throne of our gracious God, and there we will find mercy and we'll find grace to help us in our time of need. See, this word grace here doesn't mean, grace normally means like unmerited favor, but here, unmerited favor is not going to really help you when you're in your time of need. This word grace here is more of an active grace, like an action grace, to be able to give you and give you the ability to do what you could not do, supernatural ability to do what you could not do. Otherwise, we go to the throne of God for two things. We go there when we've sinned, and we go there we find mercy, and we go there also to find grace that will help us in our time of need. So whenever we're needing strength, or whenever we're needing healing, or whenever we're needing God in a situation, there's this grace that he gives us, all right? Because see, he's been, not only has he faced those weaknesses, but he conquered them. So those scars, they show that there was a battle that was fought. Those scars show that there was a war that happened, but those scars also show that victory happened. He knows how to conquer every single one of those sins. So do you have scars of, drug abuse? Do you have scars of adultery? Do you have scars of hate? Do you have scars of racism? Do you have scars of abandonment? Do you have scars of being a victim or being the abuser? Whatever those scars are, if they're scars, they're healed. But I guess I should have said wounds. Do you have those wounds? Well, Jesus, you go to him, and he can teach you how to overcome those wounds. Now, when they become scars, here's the second thing that I want to tell you about. Because like if you don't know this, you won't have any clue how beautiful your scars can be, and that God lets nothing go to waste. He lets absolutely nothing go to waste. So whatever happens in your life, somehow he has the ability to turn around and give it purpose. The Romans 8:28, that all things work together for the good of those that love God and are called according to his purpose. Man, that is one of the most amazingly true verses in the entire Bible, that he leaves nothing to waste. My mistakes, my past, my failures, the people that I've hurt. Oh, but man, the people that have hurt me, other people's mistakes against me, the way that people have wronged me and abused me and victimized me. He leaves nothing to waste. Nothing. And he takes all of that negative, takes all of that hurt, and he takes all of that pain, and he uses it. Check this out. 2 Corinthians chapter 1. It's going to blow your mind. You're not even going to believe that this is in the Bible. You're not even going to believe that it's here. Reading from the New Living Translation. 2 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 3. It says, all praise, this is Paul talking. It says, all praise to God, the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. God is our merciful Father and the source of all comfort. He comforts us in all of our troubles. So that's a fact. And so I love it. The Bible says a fact, and then it says, when it says so, it's like, because this is true, so this. So here's a fact. He comforts us in all of our troubles so that we can comfort others. So this gospel that we live out, we follow Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith. We strip off every weight. We follow him. We run out. How do we do this? By keeping our eyes on Jesus, by following Jesus. So what does God do for us? It says he comforts us in all of our troubles. Why? So we can do the same thing. Everything that God does for us, he wants us to do for somebody else. Every single thing he does for us. You're like, I can't forgive sins. Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can. I can't do this. I can't do that. Yeah, you can. Whatever God does for us, he wants us to do for others. He comforts us in all of our troubles so that we can comfort others. Check this out. For when they are troubled, we will be able to give them the same comfort God has given us. So you don't even believe that's in the Bible. It's lit. I'm not making it up. I'm just reading it. It's in there. It says, when they are troubled, we will be able to give them what kind of comfort? The same comfort God has given us. You're like, that can't be true. If I help somebody or comfort them in their time of trouble, that can't be the same as it would be if God is. Okay, check this out. Has someone ever comforted you and where you were like, that was really God? God sent that person in my life. Has somebody ever really just at the right time, at the right moment, spoke into your life at that moment where you were suicidal, that moment you were broken, that moment you were about to make this bet, and somebody came into your life? So there's mistakes made, you were a victim, this thing or that thing, and somebody came into your life and they spoke to you and you were like, that was God. comforting me. It's the same comfort. So just like that, somebody did that for you. That was God doing it. God's saying, now I want you to go and do the same thing. Now I know that you don't think that you can, but you can. And that's the purpose. See, God leaves nothing to waste. Your scars matter. Your scars are valuable. Your scars are useful. They mean something. To the drug addict who's hurting and trying to find freedom, somebody who's never been addicted to drugs and doesn't know anything about it, and they come along and they're like, hey, listen, I mean, all you got to do, whatever. They're like, have you ever been addicted to drugs? They're like, no. Well, they're like, well, don't talk to me then, because you don't know what it's like. You don't have the same scars that I have. You have no idea. To someone who has been raped and somebody comes along and they're trying to like comfort and trying to help, and you're like, have you been raped? And no. Well, then how do you know? How valuable is a scar then? Because someone who has been raped, someone who has been addicted to drugs, someone who has been in whatever situation it is, and they come along and they say, I've been there. That wound is no longer a wound. It's now a scar. There's a battle that was fought. There's a war that was fought. And there's victory. That wound is healed. And now it's a scar. And the reason that scar is going to be beautiful is because now I can help you. I can talk to you about what Jesus did in my life. How he conquered. How he conquered whatever can victimize anyone. Nothing's left to waste. Your scars matter. Your scars are valuable. Your story matters. God did not allow any of these things to happen to you just for him to be able to heal you and turn it into a scar, and then you just go on and live your life. No, he wants us to give the same comfort that he has given us to others. How do we do that? It's through our scars. He comforts us in all of our troubles so that we can comfort others. Jesus is amazing. I mean, look at what Jesus did. You know, when you think about this guy, he says, I've come for everybody. I've come for everybody. A woman caught in adultery. Everybody picks up stones to stone her, kill her. And Jesus is like, hey guys, whoever here is without sin, you can cast the first stone. And they're like, guess that's not going to be me then. And so one by one, they start dropping their stones. So to the woman caught in adultery, the victim, he says, I've come for you. You matter. I've come for you. Now, check this out. The Apostle Paul, before he's Paul, he's this guy, Saul, this Jew who is zealous for Judaism, zealous to persecute Christians, zealous. He's looking for people that he can persecute. He wants to throw them in jail. He's standing by and condoning other people being stoned to death for believing in Jesus. And Christians are terrified of this man. So we're not talking about a victim here. We're talking about an abuser. We're talking about a victimizer. We're talking about someone who is not somebody who could come to God and say, oh, please help me in my time of trouble. We're talking about an abuser. And God stops him on the road and speaks to him. And he says, you, I want you. I've come for you. Jesus has come for everybody. The woman caught in adultery said, I've come for you. I've got a plan for you. I've got a life for you. To the abuser, he says, I've come for you. I got a life for you. I got a plan for you. Because you have scars too. You have wounds too. Somehow, whenever the abuser wounds others, doesn't realize it at that time, but he's wounding himself or herself at that time. You don't realize it. But being an abuser, when you hurt someone else, you're hurting yourself. You don't know it until it comes around to this time. And you see those open wounds of how you've hurt and how you, oh man, they get in the way. Trust me, they get in the way. Try to make things right with God, but you've got these open wounds of how you've hurt someone else. It's almost like, the whip that you wounded someone else with. It just makes its way right back around and gets you. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. And you're hurt and you're wounded by your past and the things that you've done and how you've hurt people. And you just keep poking and prodding at it. And you never allow it to heal. Or someone, you've not been an abuser. You just literally have no fault of your own. Just people have victimized you and you can't move on, and you just keep poking and prodding at it until it actually becomes your identity. It becomes part of who you are. It becomes something that you don't even know how to live without. Like, you've been living so long with the identity of someone who's been hurt, of someone who has wounds. You've been calling them scars, but they're actually not scars. You've been saying, oh, I'm emotionally scarred, or I'm emotionally, mentally scarred, I'm all these scars, but they're actually not scars. They're wounds, because life is leaving through that wound. Life just is continually leaving. That's not a scar, that's a wound. Well, let me just read this to you, what Jesus said to this guy in John chapter 5. I'm going to say it to you. John chapter 5, verse 1, it says, afterward, Jesus returned to Jerusalem for one of the Jewish holy days. And inside the city, near the sheep gate, was this pool of Bethesda, and it had 5 covered porches. And there were crowds of sick people, blind, lame, or paralyzed, and they all laid on the porches. And one of the men lying there had been sick for 38 years. And when Jesus saw him and knew he had been ill for a long time, he asked him this question: do you want to get well? Do you want it? He says, I can't, sir. The sick man said, for I have no one to put me in the pool, for supposedly when the water would bubble up, somebody could go down to the pool and they'd be healed. He says, someone always gets in ahead of me. Think about that. 38 years, that was his identity. 38 years, that's all he had known. It's like 38 years, this is who I am. This wound, this is just this thing that's happened. This is part of me. This is who I am. And Jesus is like, do you want to get well? I realize that depression and anxiety and suicidal thoughts are wounds, are sicknesses. But somehow, some way, our wounds and our sicknesses, there comes this moment of like they have afflicted us and they have victimized us. But there becomes this moment in some people's lives where we actually start to embrace the wound and embrace the sickness and embrace the disease, and we allow it to become part of our identity. And even when the opportunity for being well comes along, to be healed comes along, we're not sure we want to let go, because we want to hold on. And we're not really sure that we would know how to operate as a well person. You see people that aren't well on Twitter and on social media, and they are like, they don't know how to get on social media without somehow drawing attention to themselves by how depressed they are, by how sad they are, by how whatever. They need to let you know that they're wounded, that they're bleeding, that life is leaving. They actually don't know how to carry on a conversation unless they are talking about how victimized they are, how abused they are. It's literally become the only language that they know how to speak. It's just, I am a victim. They don't know how, they get their fingers over the keyboard and they literally don't know how to say something positive about anyone else. All they can say is hashtag so depressed. And Jesus would come along and he'd say, do you want to get well? Do you want to get well? Then let's stop poking the wound, prodding the wound, because it's infected and it's literally taken over your whole life. Let me heal it. He says, look, it's me. He says, I have the same scars. Got them all. Faced everything you face, and I've conquered it. Just let me heal you. I'm here for you. I love that, because it doesn't matter what situation that you're in today. Victim or abuser. God says, I'm here for you. I took scars for you. He who knew no sin became everything that you are, so that he could literally trade garments with you, metaphorically, to take your blame, your sin, and put on you instead righteousness. So he could literally take his righteousness off and then clothe us with his righteousness. So where God looks at us and instead doesn't see our sin and doesn't see our pain and doesn't see the wounds, he sees scars. He sees scars. He sees that a battle was fought, that a war was fought, and that victory happened. That every single sin that I have committed has been conquered. That Jesus paid for it all. That Jesus died for it all. For the victim, for the abuser, every single sin has been paid for. They're not wounds, they're scars. So when I see him, I see scars that are matching. And he knows how I'm feeling. He knows what I've been through. And he knows how to heal me. By his scars, by his stripes, we are healed. Take that healing, take those scars, and comfort others with the same exact comfort that God has given us. So you're either one of two people here. You're either someone walking around with wounds, and you need God to heal those wounds and turn them into scars. And from that day forward, you got to change your thinking. From that day forward, we don't want to walk around as a victim anymore. From that day forward, those scars are beautiful. Those scars are valuable. Those scars are useful. They are worth something. What are they worth? For whatever somebody's gone through the exact same thing that you've gone through, now you're the one that can speak to them. Not me. You. You. You got two people here. If you got wounds, he's ready to heal you. If you got scars, he's ready to use you. Do you want to get well? Let him heal you. Stop poking the wound. Stop identifying yourself as a victim. Stop getting on social media and just playing into that this is who you are. It's not who you are. You're a child of God. You can go to the throne of grace and find mercy, and you can find grace to help you, to heal you, to change you. Let that wound become a scar. Let it heal. Leave it alone. Take your hand out of it. Stop trying to fix it. Give it to God. Let it become a scar. Two people. You got wounds, you want to get healed, you want to be well, let him heal it. You got scars, let him use you. Let him take it. I know it's awkward to talk about things that are really personal, but there'll be moments for it. You don't have to get on social media and be like, I did a lot of bad things. God will open up the doors and you'll know when. People who've gone through really traumatic and awful, especially sexual things, that's not something that they just want to blast out like with the trumpet. But you're not the only one who's been through that. And God will bring someone along in your path, and your story will matter, and your scars will matter, and they will be life-changing. And that person is going to need you. They're going to desperately need you. They're going to come to you with wounds. You're going to go to them with scars. Scars you're not ashamed of. Scars that show that a battle was fought. victory has been achieved through Jesus Christ. And in that moment, you're going to give them the same comfort that God has given you. Man, whew, what an exciting message today. This is amazing. He's come for all of us. He's here for all of us. No matter what situation that you're in, He's here for you. He's after you. Let me pray for you. God, thank you for your word. Thank you that you comfort us in our time of trouble. Help us to see the gospel as not just something that we're always receiving and always asking for and always asking you to do something for us, like our religion and our spirituality is always about just you pouring out on us, but it's actually you pouring into us so that we can pour out to someone else. And here, as we learn in your word in 2 Corinthians chapter 1, that you have comforted us so that we can be a comfort to others, that the scars in our life are not something that will be wasted, but they are something that actually has value. Your scars have value, Jesus. Your scars have worth. Your scars mean something. They mean that a victory, that a battle was fought, a war was fought, and victory was won for us, that your scars have brought us life. Lord, let our scars bring life to someone else. Let the things that have happened to us in our past bring life to someone else. Let our story be a comfort to someone else and be able to help them in their time of need. And I pray, God, for whoever's watching this and hurting, they've got wounds, that you'll touch their life and you'll heal their wounds and replace it with beautiful scars. Scars that they can say that the battle was fought, but Jesus healed me. And we just thank you, God, for what you wanting to do in our lives, and that you've come for all of us, that none of us are excluded, that you love us all. In Jesus' name. Whew. Thank you, guys. I love you so much. Appreciate you.